Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network's YouTube channel. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can find us on Facebook and stay up to date on our Facebook group, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for podcasts, hosts, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you might be on the spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's special series or special report of the seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Mekas. If this is your first time watching, please click subscribe, like, share, comment, and listen to wherever you listen to your podcasts. Septemics, a philosophical science. We welcome back Jim Marshall in part 10 of Septemics, a philosophical science, hierarchies of human phenomena, analysis, prediction, and management of human affairs. Founder and creator of Septemics and author of the book Septemics joins us again. Jim Marshall, how are we doing?
Hi, Paul. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. Good to see you again. It's been a little while. So before we jump into book 2, chapters 1, 2, and 3, give you a little moment here to reintroduce yourself and maybe a recap.
Okay. Well, for those of you who don't know who I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena, which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I created a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics and published it in the book Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. And today we're going to talk about some of the content of that book.
Yeah. We're going to jump right on in here. It's so this is group scales. Let me go to the first slide here and get our, come on, here we go. Cool. So the first scale is, let me get our pictures oriented here so people can see us while we're talking back and forth here. There we go. So first scale we're talking about today is the scale of relationships.
Right. So group scales means that these scales apply to groups of humans rather than individuals. So, of course, anytime there's a relationship, it is by definition a group because it's more than one person.
Mm.
So let's look at the type. This is a spiral scale. Now, what that means is there is an apparent congruence between levels 1 and 7. If you observe a person who's at a 7, which is obsession, it's very often to make the mistake of thinking he's at 1, unity. But at unity, it's duplication. The two people are so close that they duplicate one another. They finish one another's sentences. They get telepathic messages from one another. Obsession, none of that happens. It's a fixation. But if you don't pay attention, you can make the mistake of misassessing the person. You can see a person who's at level 1 and think he's at 7 or vice versa. So that's what spiral means. Gradual. This is a gradual scale, which means there is an infinitude of gradations between each of the levels. So you move gradually from level 3 to level 2, for example. And general means this is not context driven. So in other words, you have a relationship. It could be a guy's relationship with his wife. It could be a guy's relationship with his brother. It could be 2 girlfriends. There's some relationship there. And once you get that context, it's general, meaning you find the level and you're done. Many of the scales are specific scales, meaning that it's driven by context. For example, the scale of motivation. What is my motivation toward my mother? What is my motivation toward my father? What is my motivation toward my pastor? And what is my boss's motivation toward me? What is my son's motivation toward me? These are all different contexts, and there could be hundreds of them. In a general scale, you don't have that. You just have one finding. So you can locate your relationship somewhere on this scale, and once you've done that, you're done with that relationship. Now, you could potentially do another relationship, but that would be a completely separate thing. Now, of course, once you find the level, there's always a possibility of moving yourself up to the next level, which is the whole idea of this subject. Mm. So let's look at the axis now, the dotted vertical line. What are we measuring on this scale? If you have a scale, you have to know what you are measuring. In other words, let's take a yardstick. If a yardstick has no markings on it, it's just a piece of wood. But somebody comes in and marks it in inches or centimeters, okay? And then you know what you're measuring. You're measuring centimeters. So that is why there has to be an axis here given. Now, what are we measuring in this scale? We're measuring distance and understanding. Mm. Now, when I say distance, we're talking about obviously some kind of emotional distance. The word affinity means literally close to. So when there is affinity, you are at or near the top of the scale, meaning you're very close. When there is not affinity, you are at or near the bottom of the scale, meaning there's great distance. Yeah. Well, above level 1 is zero distance. Now, why is that above level 1? That is unattainable because it's an absolute. Humans cannot attain absolutes. You could get very, very, very close to zero distance. But even the fact that you know somebody exists is a kind of a connection. And looking at the bottom, infinite distance. Again, you cannot really attain infinite distance because it's an absolute, but you can get very, very close to infinite distance. So take some horrible person like Charles Starkweather, who a serial murderer killed 12 people in 10 days in 1957 and admitted it and was absolutely unrepentant. They executed him, appropriately so. All right, so as far as I'm concerned, I want to be as far away from that guy as I can possibly get.
Yeah.
You know, if you looked at him in a way that he thought you didn't like him, he would just kill you. Okay? So this is like, this is the way I feel about terrorists, I want them far away from me. So is it going to be infinite? Well, no. Even the fact that, like, take Al-Qaeda. I've never met Al-Qaeda. I never saw Al-Qaeda. All I know about Al-Qaeda is that they were in the news for a couple of years, okay? Mm. So that's a lot of distance, but it's not really infinite. Now, the distance corresponds to understanding. Why are you close to somebody? You're close to somebody because you understand them. So when you have an understanding with somebody, you have a lessening of distance. So let's say you have a happy couple, a husband and a wife, they're happily married. There's a lot of understanding there. Now, understanding doesn't necessarily mean approval. In other words, the wife knows that the guy eats a lot of junk food, he drinks too much beer, he smokes. She understands that, you see? And in a sense, that's like part of their relationship. In other words, now, probably if he stopped all that, they might even get closer. So we're talking about understanding. Understanding is different from approval. Now, no understanding at the bottom of the scale, when you have infinite distance, is no understanding. So let's take some guy in China. I never met him. I don't know his name. I don't know anything about him. I don't know where he is. Okay. So I have no understanding of that person. He's just some guy in China. I know there's a lot of people in China. I never saw them. I'm never going to meet them. So there's a lot of distance between me and them.
Yeah.
I can't even think, oh, this guy has a certain name. Like President, I guess he's President Xi. Is he considered president? President Xi,
Yeah.
the head of the Communist Party. So I know a lot about him. I know what he looks like. Uh, I sort of know how he moves. I've seen him a lot. And so I have a little tiny bit of connection to him.
Mhm.
It's not the same as some guy who I never saw, I'm never going to see. So if it's somebody, like somebody on another planet, if there's somebody on another planet, I have no understanding of that person.
Yeah.
So there's it's like virtually infinite distance. So now that we talked about the extremes, this is what we're talking about. So as you go up the scale, the distance between you and this person gets less. This is important to understand because when we talk about the actual levels, you're going to see this is not obvious that it would go in the way that it does. But I'm telling you it does because I worked with this for 40 years with my clients. Okay, so let's start at the bottom, obsession. So you have some nutty guy, right? And he's got photographs of this woman all over his apartment. He's never met her. He's never spoken to her. He's a nut. Okay? He's obsessed. Could be an actress, could be a model, could be some girl at his gym. He's fixated. Okay? Now, somebody might say that he's in love with her. Well, I would dispute that because that's not love.
Yeah.
That's insanity.
Hmm.
So it's some kind of a fixation. Okay? Now, I think this is equally true with people who hate people in office.
Mm.
They hate people, There's a lot of people who hate Biden and a lot of people who hate Trump. Okay? Now, that could be described in some cases as an obsession. Where like they never met this person, they never spoke to this person, and they're never going to.
Yeah.
But it's like the person is living in their mind rent free. You see?
Yeah.
It's a fixation.
Mm.
Like there are people who say, "Don't talk to me about Donald Trump." You know, who's talking about Donald Trump? I didn't say a word about Donald Trump.
Yeah, right. They're like, I didn't say anything. What the
I
hell?
don't even bring him up because I know this people have opinions about these things,
Hmm.
and the people who are at or near the bottom of the scale, these are not healthy opinions. These are daffy opinions.
Yeah.
So
Gossip.
there are people who are fixated on these different people. Okay.
Hmm.
Uh, And that's level 7. It's an obsession. That's as far away as you can get. And so when you think about that it's close to infinite distance and close to no understanding, these people, if you talk to them, they sound like they understand the whole thing.
Yeah.
They don't. I
Yeah.
grew up in New York. My family was connected with the Trump family from before I was born.
Mm.
Okay? We rented from them. So I know all about Donald Trump. I knew about Donald Trump before he ever imagined that he would go for public office.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
just a guy making a lot of money. So I'm saying I know something about him. Okay, I know a lot. I have a history because this guy in New York, every single day he was in the news in New York every day for decades.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have no fixation on him, but I do have some knowledge about him, who he is, who he knows, who his friends are, blah, 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 blah. Right? Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's go up to enmity. Enmity is hatred. Now, this is still not sensible and counterproductive, but it's not as bad as obsession. So, for example, there are lots of Jews who hate Hitler. Now, most of them don't go around saying, I hate Hitler, I hate Hitler, I hate Hitler, I hate, if he comes up, they'll make a comment and you can see
Mm.
from what they say, and they have good reason. Many of them have family members that were exterminated by Hitler.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not completely without reason for them to hate him. It's still a very low-toned thing. So the relationship that these people have, or like the Ku Klux Klan,
Yeah.
people who hate the Ku Klux Klan. There are good reasons for blacks and other groups who are oppressed by the Ku Klux Klan to hate them. Okay,
Mhm.
that's not as crazy as obsession. So if a guy is a Klan member, he runs for office. There's millions of people. They're not going to vote for him. They don't care if he says he's out. You are in. I'm not voting for you.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's hatred there.
Yeah. Bad history.
Okay, now, so above that, we're getting now into a little less crazy is disassociation.
Mm.
Disassociation is dislike. You dislike somebody. And because you dislike them, you disassociate from them. So this is like the guy and the girl have a relationship and they break up. The girl says, look, Joe, I don't want to see you anymore. Don't call me. Go away. Okay? They break up. Here, you can have your ring back. Okay? That's disassociation. Clearly, there's dislike. Doesn't mean she hates him, but she's not going to be associated with him. She dislikes him.
Yeah.
So obviously, they wouldn't be breaking up if she liked him. They might be having some difficult conversations, or they might be going to a marriage counselor. But once you get to the point of disassociating somebody, like there are certain people, certain commentators, I'm not going to listen to them. They offend me. And they come on, I shut it off.
Mm-hmm.
Or I
Yeah.
fast forward it. I'm not going to listen to this guy. Okay? For a variety of reasons, whatever it is. I don't like them. I'm disassociating from them. And that's normal. That's like most of us have some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's level 5. Then, since we're coming up to the middle, let me talk about this dividing line in the middle between sane and insane. Now, so far, the 3 levels that I have explicated are forms of insanity. For example, if you break up with a girlfriend, that doesn't mean you have to dislike her. I have lots of girlfriends. I see them like, oh, how are you doing? How's your job? What's going on? How have you been? I see you
Yeah.
cut your hair. So you can still like somebody after you break up with them, you see. But dislike, that's a little insane. Hatred is more insane, and fixation is even further insane.
Mm.
So realize that when you are fixated on somebody, that's worse than hating them. That is not obvious. Most people would think, well, hatred is at the bottom of the scale. No, it's not. Obsession is the bottom
Yeah.
of the scale because it's a spiral scale. Okay? So when you come up to level 4, association is neutral, right? Like I go to the bank, there's a teller there. I say, I'd like to cash the check. She says, okay. I'm associating with this person. I don't like her. I don't dislike her. She's doing her job. I show her my ID. She gives me my money. I go home, right? That's normal. That's
Mhm.
what you get. You go into a store, the clerk says, okay, it's $22.77. Okay, here it is. Goodbye. That's association. Or like you're sitting next to somebody at a baseball game. Some guy's sitting next to you, and you say, "Oh, are you a Giants fan? Oh no, I'm a Dodgers fan. Oh, okay." You're associating with him. You
Yeah.
know, you don't really like him. If somebody says, "Do you like this guy?" I don't like him. I don't dislike him. He's just some guy. He's got a ticket next to me, and I said hello. You see, that's neutral. It's not sane and it's not insane. Now, when we move up to 3, friendship, now that's sane. You like somebody. It doesn't mean that you approve of everything they do, but you can like them.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are people in both political parties who I like. They do things I don't agree with. They vote in ways that I don't agree with. They propound policies I don't agree with, but I still like them.
Mm.
You see,
Yeah.
that's healthy. That's sane. You know, I don't have any animosity toward these guys. Now, some of these guys are crooks. That's another thing.
Yeah.
That's a good reason to dislike somebody. This guy is stealing millions of dollars from the public. You know, you and I are paying our taxes, and this guy is living in a 40-room mansion with a limousine. Well, how did that happen? So, you know, that's different. But
Hmm.
you can like people even if you don't agree with everything. Because to be honest, I can't think of anybody I agree with completely.
Yeah.
You
There's
know,
always something that you're not going to agree with, but
that's right.
you move on. You're like, hey,
That's right.
okay,
That's
cool.
right. You accept it, and you still like the person.
Yeah.
You know, like I had a friend recently died. I knew him my whole life since the age of 4.
Wow.
He every day at about 4:30 he had cocktail hour. 365 days a year he'd make martinis and would have martinis. Okay, this is like leftover from the old culture. You don't
Yeah.
see too much of this anymore. He was an older guy. Okay, so by the time dinner came around, he was always drunk. Not drunk to where he's obnoxious or anything,
Yeah.
but you know, he was in a kind of, you could tell he was a little tipsy. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and in
Inebriated.
his case, it was kind of pleasant. He was a friendly guy, you know? It made him a little more outgoing. So I didn't really like that. I don't drink at all. Okay. And I have worked with people as a holistic health practitioner. I try to get them to stop drinking.
Hmm.
It's not helpful. Some of them do, and some of them don't. Or maybe I'd get them to cut down. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to like my friend because he drank martinis every day. I still like them.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that's a sane relationship. Now we go up to 2, harmony. This is what we call love. When two people are in love, it's because they're harmonizing. If you think in terms of music, there are
Hmm.
certain notes you can play together that sound good. Okay. There are certain notes you can play together that make you feel uneasy. And this is what composers and arrangers do. They work with this. Do they want you to feel resolved or they want you to feel tense?
Hmm.
You know? And that is the harmony they select. So when two people are in harmony, they're in love. That is what love is. It's harmony. So this, in a sense, solves that age-old question, what is love? There it is. It's harmony. Are you in harmony with this person or not? Now, again, harmony doesn't mean duplication, right? So this person, you know, one day a week likes to go to a Thai restaurant. Okay, we go to Thai, and then another day a week we go to Italian because the guy likes the Italian. You know, so they're harmonizing. See, they're not fighting over it. They're they're close, and well, my girl likes Thai food, so we go for Thai food once in a while. I'm not crazy about it, you know.
Yeah.
So they're harmonizing. You see, or it could be. Uh, uh, they're going to have steak. How do you want your steak? I like mine well done. Well, I like mine rare. Well, you know, they're harmonizing. You see?
Yeah.
I'll leave yours in the oven for an extra 2 minutes. See? That's harmonizing. That's what love is about. So when you have two people who are in love, it's because they're now there's very little distance between those people. They're close,
Hmm.
right? So if you say to the person, "Are you close to anyone?" Oh yeah, I'm close to my boyfriend. You see, very little distance between them.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, how do you feel about the Houthi rebels who've been attacking shipping uh, in the Red Sea? I don't want to have anything to do with those people. See, that's distance. You don't want to be close to them. They're
Yeah.
violent criminals. You want to be far away from those people. See? Okay. So then we get up to level 1. Now, I have often said, and I'll say it again, To the extent that people have difficulty understanding these scales, it's the extremes that they usually have difficulty with. Because the extremes are situations that don't normally apply. So the person may never have seen it. I mean, it's entirely possible for someone to never have known anybody who was obsessed. You know? I mean, you take some 18-year-old girl who lives in Nebraska, maybe she never saw that. You
Yeah.
know? She comes from a normal family, she has regular friends, you know, and she may never have even seen that. So it's like, well, what is this? What are you talking about? You mean there are people who think about people even though they're far away from them? They're fixated. What is that? So, and the reason that person would have trouble understanding it is because it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's now this is just true at the other end. Unity. Unity is beyond love. Unity is duplication.
Hmm.
You know, in Star Trek, you had the Vulcan mind meld,
Yeah.
where Spock would join his mind with another's mind and then he would extract the information. That is sort of what this is. Where
Mm.
these people are so close, they duplicate one another.
Hmm.
So you'll have the boyfriend, he's got the girlfriend sitting on his lap and he thinks to her, I sure would like a cup of tea. He doesn't say anything. She gets up, she goes in the kitchen, she makes him a cup of tea and brings it to him. No words are said.
Yeah.
Well, when you get a really close couple, that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I told you about that friend of mine who died recently, who used to drink the martinis every day.
Mhm.
We were so close that routinely I would finish his sentences. He would start to say something, and I would get it perfectly, and he would hesitate, and then I would finish the sentence, and he'd say, "Yeah, right. That's what I meant."
Yeah.
All the time, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty close, you know? Or like I knew what he was trying to say, even though he was having some trouble getting the right word, you know, because I'm
Yeah.
an experienced extemporaneous speaker and a professional writer, and he's not. So it was able for me to, I could sort of fill in the blanks for him.
Yeah.
So that's duplication. I duplicated him. He didn't have to tell me much of anything. You know, it's like we rooted for the same sports team, you know. So I'd watch the team, they'd have a bad game, and I'd say, oh boy, I'm sure my friend is upset about this, you know. And then I find out later he was, you know. So that's really beyond love. So, but you have to think about this. In order to love someone, you have to be separate from the person, right? So you
Mhm.
have a couple, you have the husband and the wife, and they're two different people. They have different personalities, they have different bodies, they have different genders, okay? There's love there, there's harmony there, but they're not duplicating. Duplicating is a mystical thing.
Yeah. Yeah. The
This goes
metaphysics.
into the ability of a spiritual being to duplicate another spiritual being.
Mm.
Will you get it? You know, in the book of Exodus, if you watch the Ten Commandments, one of the most famous movies ever made, starring Charlton Heston,
Mhm.
he comes down and he says, God spoke to me, and I didn't hear a voice, but his words were in my mind.
Yeah.
That's telepathy. So that's unity. So he went up on the mountain and he had some unity experience where God told him, these are the rules, write them down and take them back to your people. Well, in the movie, you heard a voice saying it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously it's a movie, so they have to, but he, in expressing it to his people, said, I heard his voice in my mind. And that's what happens. Like I had a girlfriend many years ago, and one day while I was meditating, it came to me that she had died.
Oof.
Now, I hadn't spoken to this person in decades because, we broke up, we went on, had other relationships.
Yeah.
It just came to me. I just knew it. There was no doubt in my mind I would have bet money on it
Hmm.
because this is somebody who I had been close to. And so when she separated from her body and went back into the spirit realm, I got it.
Yeah.
I knew. See, that's knowledge and understanding are two different things. Like if you said to me, do you know that Biden is president? I'd say, well, no, I don't really know that Biden is president. I understand he's president. Everything I read every day says, leads me to believe that. Would I bet money on it? Yes. But do I
Yeah.
know? No. What do I know? I know that the acceleration of gravity near the surface of the earth is 10 meters per second per second. It has been proven thousands of times. Go out and measure it yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. I
Yeah.
know that in a right triangle, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c squared is the hypotenuse.
Yeah.
I know that. That is not understanding. It's beyond understanding. It's knowing.
Knowing.
That is what you get at level 1.
Mm.
Duplication. You duplicate someone. Like sometimes you meet somebody and you just get close to them. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm duplicating this person. See?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that tells you this is going to be a good relationship. Now, the relationship could descend the scale and you wind up breaking up.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, it was duplication. So it's sort of like a guy, he thinks, she would like me to bring her a rose today. She didn't say anything, but he goes out, he gets the rose, he brings, oh, that's so nice. I was really looking for something like that to brighten my day. You see, he
Yeah.
gets,
Yeah.
he duplicates her. See, that's not understanding. Understanding is she said, would you pick me up a rose on the way over? And he says, okay, that's understanding. Duplication, you just get it. You make a duplicate of the other person.
Yeah.
So this is a very rare state.
Yeah, it's a metaphysical state, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
In a sense, this whole scale is metaphysical. Really.
True. Yeah.
But it's in level 1, it's more obvious, and it's a word that is appropriately used to sort of explain this phenomenon.
Mm.
Because to duplicate someone, that doesn't happen a lot.
No.
Some people never do it. Some people do not get the idea. How can I duplicate a person? They're nowhere near this,
Yeah.
But people who are high on this scale, they get there.
Yeah.
So that's what this scale is about.
Cool. Okay, let's see. Next scale, chapter 2 of book 2 is a scale of life spheres.
Right. This is extremely important. Now, let me explain what I mean by life spheres. So we go through life and you can sort of expand into life and contract from life. So let's say you have some guy, he's mentally ill, he has no job, he doesn't go out of his house, he has no friends. This guy is at level 7.
Mm.
He's introverted. He's nihilistic. He's not connected to anybody. He doesn't even really like his therapist. He doesn't even really like his psychiatrist who prescribes the Thorazine or whatever it is he's taking, right?
Yeah.
This guy can't even embrace himself. Okay, so when you go into a mental institution and you see these people who are really disassociated, not paying attention like normal people. They're really, really weird. They're at level 7. That's why they're in the insane asylum. They're in the introversion sphere. These are deeply introverted persons. So the challenge to this person would be to succeed as an individual. He's not even succeeding as an individual. He can't feed himself. They have to bring him his meals, right? They have to give him a bed to sleep in. They have to provide medical treatment and so forth. He cannot succeed as an individual. So if you talk to these people in insane asylums, you'll say, well, yeah, I'd really like to be able to get out of here someday and have my own place and be able to have a job. That's a challenge to them.
Yeah.
Because they're at level 7.
Hmm.
So that's the bottom of the scale. Now, I want to talk about the idea of life spheres. So this guy's sphere, and I use that in quotation marks, is a point. He has no space. He is not including anything in his life. His heart is going, and he can walk around, and that's about it. He's introverted. Okay? So you can walk up to this guy and talk to him, and he doesn't even respond. That's what catatonia is. Or he might respond, but it's non-compos mentis. You say, how are you doing? He says, the breadsticks are on the table.
Yeah.
You see? So this guy has no space as a being. He's down to a point. Now, if you expand a little bit, you come up to level 6. And you go from being nihilistic to egocentric.
Mm.
Now, we usually use the word egocentric in a pejorative sense, but you got to realize this is level 6.
Yeah, it's way down there.
This guy can only embrace himself. That is what egocentric means, right? When you see a guy who can only embrace himself, you say, hey, this guy's egocentric. And you're right. See, because he can only embrace himself. His challenge would be to succeed in personal relationships. He can't succeed in personal relationships because he's egocentric. So he has enough sphere to be himself. In other words, he can hold a job, he can ride on the bus, he can write a check. That's about it. You see? He can watch TV. That's his life. He can only embrace himself. This person is not close to anyone. He cannot succeed in personal relationships. That is why that is his challenge. If you talk to this person, like a therapist or a pastor talks to him, what would you like to have happen? Well, I'd really like to have a girlfriend. You see, that's succeeding in a personal relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That's beyond him because he's at level 6. Now, if his sphere expands a little bit, it'll expand enough to include a personal relationship. So this is what I call the interpersonal sphere. This is like the guy, he can relate to his family. I knew a family once that was extremely dysfunctional. It was 2 parents and 2 sons, and both of the sons were adults, and they all lived in the same apartment.
Mm.
Okay?
Wow.
So one of these guys was a friend of mine. He held a job. He had talent. He was a nice guy. Okay? So he was at level 5. He could deal with his family. He could deal with his mother and his father and his brother. That's about it.
Hmm.
He never had any type of girlfriend or anything like that I know of, ever. So he was in the interpersonal sphere. Now, if he managed to get a significant other, that would be part of his interpersonal sphere. So you find a lot of people, you find a couple, right? And they're close, but everything else in the world is alien to them.
Yeah.
So they have enough space to include one another. So their challenge is to succeed with a team. People who are at level 5 cannot succeed with a team. Sometimes you see this, like there's a term, a team player.
Mhm.
If you play organized team sports, this is a big thing. So if you're a guard on a football team, you're not going to carry the ball. You're never going to be the star. You have to block that opponent, keep them from coming across the line so that the quarterback has time to throw the pass. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay? That's working as a team. Now, there are people who can't do that.
Hmm.
So I had a client, for example, like that. He really, even though he kind of sort of tried to sort of be in a team sport, it never stuck. He never liked it. He couldn't do it. He couldn't relate. But he was a great swimmer. You know why he was a great swimmer? You do that by yourself.
Yeah.
There's no team. Even if you're doing what they call a tag team, still, okay, you swim your distance and the other guy takes over. You really has nothing to do with you, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
guy running a relay, he runs his lap and he passes the baton, and he's once he gets rid of the baton, he's got nothing to do with that guy. He's not close to him. He's not a team player, but he can run.
Hmm.
You see?
Yeah.
So this is like the difference between people who are on football teams, baseball teams, soccer teams, uh, uh, volleyball teams. They're team sports. You have to play as a team. Volleyball, the ball comes, you come over the fence, you hit it, and then you let the other guy whack it.
Yeah.
That's playing as a team. Okay? And the people who are at those people are at level 4. The people who are at level 5, those are the people who play golf, tennis, swimming, scuba diving. There's no team.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can't succeed with a team. It's beyond them. They do not have enough space. That's why these are called life spheres, because your sphere of interest and influence expands as you go up. So if you go up to 4, the team sphere, okay, group centric. This is a guy, he's gung ho for the team, like guys in the Marine Corps,
Mhm.
Semper Fi, you know. These guys are close to the team members. It's
Ooh-ah.
a cliche. It's a cliche. When you serve in the military, especially if you're in combat, you're close to those people for the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah. Especially,
Generally speaking, I mean, there are occasional exceptions where you have a personality conflict or something like that, but generally, they are down for the struggle with that team.
mhm.
Okay? Now, these people, their challenge is to succeed as a culture. And this is very obvious, like in police stations, right? You'll have like a police station, and the guys are cohesive. They look after one another. They lie for one another. They perjure themselves for one another. Okay.
Mhm.
But people outside the police force, they're alien. It's us and them.
Yeah.
So these are not people who are, so you'll find like policemen who are racists, policemen who are anti Semitic, policemen who hate women,
Mm.
people who hate gay people, because you see, that's a larger sphere. That's not part of their team. You see? Their team is the police station, the
Yeah.
police force, the Policemen's Benevolent Association. That's it. That's all they can get to. So
Huh.
before we go further, let me say necessarily a person who's at the team sphere has an interpersonal sphere and he has an individual sphere. In other words, if you go to most police or military persons, you'll find, regardless of what their gender is, they have a significant other. Most of them have wives and 4 husbands. See, that's 5. And they can succeed as themselves. They have bank accounts. You see?
Yeah.
They have they can succeed in a personal relationship. They can succeed with a team. Okay? So, in other words, as you expand, the sphere gets bigger and it includes the lower levels.
Mm,
That
yeah.
is why these are spheres.
Okay.
Okay? They're not areas, they're spheres. You have space. Now, after you're 4, the next one up is the cultural sphere. Now, in the cultural sphere, you're ethnocentric. For example, uh, I'm from New York. There's lots of people in New York of Italian extraction. They're very close to their paisans.
Mm,
Okay, like in the mafia. Originally, the mafia was from Sicily. If you were not Sicilian, you couldn't get in.
mm,
But after they came to America, they saw there were lots of Italians there from Naples. They were
mm.
very much like them. They spoke Italian, they had the same culture, so they allowed Italians in. See, they kind of expanded a little.
Yeah.
So if you're not Italian, you're not in. They'll work with you, maybe. They'll cut a deal with you. They'll make money with you, but you cannot be a member of the mafia if you're not Italian. Period. See, that's ethnocentric.
Yeah.
Also, I know a lot of Jewish people. Like there are lots of uh, conservative Jews, uh, Hasidic Jews. You know, they're not going to associate with people who are not Hasidic Jews. Okay? If you put sour cream on the same plate with your hamburger, they're done with you.
Yeah.
Okay? That's not kosher. See? It's ethnocentric. So there's lots of this. So this is like in America, there's lots of black people. They only trust black people. These are the people who think that all white people are racists. So a person at level 4, his goal or his challenge is to succeed as a culture. So when he expands, he comes up to level 3. Now he can succeed as a culture.
Mm.
Or like people who say, God bless America, you know, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. But if you're not American, you're out. We don't want foreigners in our neighborhood. Go away.
Yeah.
You know, they're ethnocentric. They're going to wave that flag on the 4th of July. That is their ethnicity. See? They're
Yeah.
not including the rest of humanity. So you see, this sphere is larger than 4, but it still
Mhm.
has limits. Now let's go up to 2. This is the human sphere. This is a person who can relate to all humans. I call this anthropocentric. This person says, well, it doesn't matter if they're Russians, it doesn't matter if they're Chinese, they're humans. It doesn't matter if they're Africans or if they're Aborigines or if they're Alaskans, we're all humans, you see?
Mhm.
So they can relate, they include them in their space. So this is the type of person, let's say you have a black girl, she meets a white guy, That's fine. Hey, he's a nice guy. They get together. You see? She's not stuck in being black. She can have a relationship with a white guy. See, that's a much broader sphere of influence.
Yeah.
Now, the challenge for this person is to succeed as all life. So these are people who say, well, yes, we want to protect people, but I don't give a damn what happens to the animals.
Mm.
So this is a guy, right? He likes people. He goes hunting. In his hunting, he's white. In his hunting group is a Puerto Rican, a black guy, a Jew, and an Italian, right? They're all out there. They're all friends, buddies, getting along great, right? But what is he doing? He sees the deer. He shoots it. You see? Or
Yeah.
he sees a quail. He shoots it. He doesn't give a damn about that quail. Okay? So that is beyond him. So there are very few people on earth who are at level 1.
Mm.
These are people who embrace all life forms. Many of these people are vegans. So I'm not saying all vegans are at that level. I'm just saying there are people who they like their animals live.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been around. You ever been around chickens? Chickens are nice. You
Yeah.
know, they
Been
can be.
around chickens.
They have their own thing. You know, they have their own way of doing things and their own. So I sort of like the chickens. I don't want to hurt the chickens. So somebody who is at level 2 would just wring its neck, throw it in the pot. You know.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm just saying these are different levels.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this tells you what to expect from these people. So the challenge for somebody at level 1 is to transcend life.
Mm.
This is the person who wants to attain nirvana or
Yeah.
go to heaven. That is his challenge. His sphere is big enough that he can include every living thing on earth.
Yeah.
You know, this is the type of guy, he's walking down the street, he sees an ant, he goes around it. He doesn't want to hurt that ant. Why should I hurt the ant? You see?
Yeah.
He's doing his thing. He's not bothering me. What do I care? You know? So that person embraces all of life. So this is the person who would be concerned about the poisoning of the oceans because it kills the sea life. It's a person who's against pollution, okay? It's a person who doesn't want to see all the forests cut down. So this person is embracing. Now, I'm not saying there aren't kooks, because there are, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. You know, there are people who'll say, oh, you're a logger, you're a bad person. I want you out of work because you're killing trees.
Yeah.
Okay? So, in case you haven't noticed, the whole world uses wood.
Yep.
How would we have guitars and pianos without wood?
Yeah.
You could say,
Furniture.
well, out of plastic. And I've heard some of these instruments made of plastic and they stink.
Oh, I know. They're crap.
So you know, like, for example, I had a 1957 Gibson J50.
Ooh.
Okay?
Huh.
So this guitar had aged.
Yeah.
And it had this beautiful, beautiful sound. All I had to do to get applause was just play a chord. Everybody went, ah.
Oh, remember it? Well, look at the Stradivarius, the
Right.
original Stradivarius. That was a
That's
very
right.
specific wood, which doesn't
That's
exist anymore, but
That's
they've
right.
been able to reproduce
They
it.
will soon be non-existent.
Yep.
Yeah.
However, they found a way to reproduce the wood with the worms that were originally what made the wood what it was way back in the
Very
day.
interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you want to criticize me because I have a guitar that's made of wood, well, I was a guitarist, and I was a guitarist since I was a little kid. I was playing the guitar when I was like 10. So yeah, I grew up with guitars. So they're all made of wood.
Hmm.
So there are crazy people who'll say, no, can't cut down a tree. We're going to put all these loggers out of work. No more houses built of wood. Most of the houses in the world are built of wood. It has a wood frame.
Well, these
What are you
wouldn't
going
be
to
vegetarians then either, because they'd be eating the
do?
people
Right,
that the things that they're trying to save.
right. So, so you have to realize that there's a difference between you could have a person who embraces all of life. He still eats something because he doesn't want to die.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is a guy who he's not going to just cut down a tree because it's in his way. You know, I had a property once that had an orchard
Hmm.
on the property. We actually made money from this. And so we sold the property, made a big profit. And the new owners came in and cut down the whole orchard.
Oh,
That's how I felt. Oh, I
God.
have been taking care of these trees for decades.
Yeah.
You have no idea how much work it is to take care of an orchard so that it produces fruit that you can sell. It's a
Yeah.
lot of work. You become attached to these trees. So that was like, ooh,
Hmm.
why do that? You see, so I would say that's somebody who did not embrace all of life,
Well, no. Yeah.
because because well, the pioneers, they had an axe, they went into the woods, they cleared an area in the forest, and those logs they used to make their house. And so they had to cut down some trees to make the house, but they didn't hurt the rest of the trees. You see?
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 feet from our house, there's a tree. It's been there for 200 years. It's 3 feet around. I'm not going to hurt that tree. He likes the tree. Doesn't mean he's going to die in a snowstorm, you see, because he doesn't have a house.
Hmm.
That's nutty. So
Yeah.
that's what I mean that, there are people who kind of seem to be at these levels and they're really not. And I'll tell you how that works. Let's say you meet a woman, right? She hates men. There's plenty of them around, right? A feminist, a radical feminist. Men are bad. Men are oppressors, right?
Hmm.
And this is a person who uh, belongs to an animal rights group like PETA, right? Oh,
Yeah.
how dare you hurt that animal? If you were to give this person some successful therapy on the subject of she can't have a relationship with men, she hates her father, and you work all this out, now she can get along with her father or brother, she has a boyfriend, right? She doesn't hate men anymore. That obsession that she had with animals would just go away.
Hmm.
It would just go poof.
Yeah.
That was a false manifestation. That person wasn't really embracing all of life.
Huh.
Because you see, this is concentric.
Yeah.
This is really useful information. So, if you find somebody who says, yes, I embrace all of humanity, right? And then you find out that he has no significant other, he has no friends.
Mm.
This is daffy. This guy needs therapy. Okay? So if he has successful therapy or facilitation or meditation or whatever it is, and he changes and he says, oh, okay, now I'm going to have a regular life like everybody else. Okay? That thing that he had going, that false manifestation of an upper level would evanesce.
Yeah.
I've seen this 1,000 times in my clients.
Huh.
Guy comes in, right? And he's like a rabid libertarian. Well, to be an enthusiast of a political party, that's pretty far upscale. I mean, that's at least a team.
Yeah.
But here's a guy. can't get along with people at all. Gets fired from his jobs because people can't stand him.
Hmm.
Okay? So if you work with this guy, I would get him to a point where he changes, he can get along with people, he can hold a job, he can have friends, he can have a romantic relationship. That libertarian thing will go away.
Mm.
It will stop because it was a false manifestation of an upper level.
Yeah.
So this, to a therapist or anybody like a therapist, this is very valuable information.
Heck yeah.
Don't think just because a person says, oh, we're all brothers and we all should love one another. Don't think that necessarily means he's at level 2.
Yeah.
You have to look at the rest of the picture.
Yeah.
So
What's
you
the
have
lifestyle like?
this guy says that, but then you find out he beats his wife.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, if he's beating his wife, his interpersonal sphere is a mess.
Yeah.
So he's at level 6.
Hmm.
So about type, this is a linear scale. As you can see from what I already said, there's no apparent congruence between level 1 and 7. Doesn't apply at all.
Yeah.
This is a quantum scale, meaning if there's no intervening gradation. You're at a certain level, and then a billionth of a second later, you're at another level. So you have a guy, right? He comes into therapy. Why are you here? I can't keep a job. People fire me. The coworkers don't like me. The bosses don't like me. See, this guy can get along with his wife and his mother, but he can't be a team player.
Mm.
So he's in therapy for a year. And at the end of the year, something happens. Something happens in his mind. We can't see that.
Yeah.
Suddenly he says, I'm getting along with my coworkers. They're liking me. I'm holding my job. I've been there for 6 months. I got a promotion. This guy is now at the team sphere. He wasn't there when he came in. So there was some infinitesimal point where he went click and he was able to do it.
Hmm.
This is not gradual. So this is an epiphany that the person has.
Yeah.
Something happens to this guy, says, oh, I can see. I shouldn't just be hanging around with other Americans. There's nothing wrong with hanging around with Latinos and Europeans and Africans. They're people too. You see, he
Yeah.
comes. But that is an instantaneous thing. That did not happen gradually. Now, what happened is he was thinking about it, he was processing it, he was having things go on in his mind about it. But at some point he says, yeah, I see. He gets it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you change level on a quantum scale. It's instantaneous. And again, I would see this in my clients. Like I had a client who was in a bad marriage. Person came to me and worked with him for a long time. Went home and divorced the husband.
Mm.
Boy, was this lady happy. She was so happy. I got rid of that guy. She went up to getting rid of him.
Yeah.
She didn't go down. She did very well. She had realizations. You see, she got smarter. She became more able. She came to realize, what do I want this guy in my life? He's a dope. Take a hike. You see? So there was a point when that went click in her mind, I'm done with this. And she got rid of him. And I'll tell you something, a funny thing, that the husband said to me, and I quote, what did you do to her? I said, yeah, I didn't do anything. We just did our normal, same thing I do with everybody else. Most of it had nothing to do with you.
Huh.
I didn't do anything to her. She just changed her mind. She got bigger. She expanded her space so that her life sphere was bigger. And so she got rid of somebody who was a thorn in her side.
Mm. Yeah.
Because her interpersonal sphere was a mess. I mean, if you're in a bad marriage, you see, that's a bad sign of you're not really vibrating at level 5 yet. You're not big enough. So that's the woman who the husband keeps getting drunk, keeps beating her up, keeps spending the rent money, and she stays in the relationship. Okay? That is not a legitimate interpersonal sphere.
Yeah.
It's dysfunctional. So this person will go to her girlfriend or her therapist and will say, hey, take care of yourself. You can't let this go on. You can't let somebody beat you up. You can't let somebody get you evicted because you spend all the money on gambling. See, this person is at level 6. If she wants to have an interpersonal sphere, she's going to have to expand her space. So just because it says on the mailbox, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, that doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
Because Mr. and Mrs. Smith might hate one another.
Yeah.
You see? So this can be quite complex, but this is extremely useful if you're dealing with people to know what you're looking at. And needless to say, this is a general scale. In other words, this is not context driven. It has nothing to do with context. Every human being in the world is at some level on this scale. And when you find that level, you're done as far as figuring out using the scale with that person. What you can do is try to get him up to the next higher level.
Yeah.
Okay? That is how a general scale works. It's a general condition. It's like the difference between a personality disorder and a more narrow disorder. So you have a guy, he's a normal guy, right? But he has arachnophobia. If a spider comes in the room, he runs away. He's
Yeah.
afraid. That's arachnophobia, okay? But if there's no spiders in the room, he's fine. He's a regular guy. That's different from
Yeah.
this personality disorder. In a personality disorder, that disorder affects the person's entire life, his entire personality. If you get somebody who has narcissistic personality disorder, that's what you get. This is not going to go away momentarily. He's not going to suddenly be a nice guy the next day.
Mm-mm.
See? Or let's say you have a guy who he's afraid of heights. Okay? I know quite a few people like that. As long as you don't ask them to go up on the roof, they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
I knew several people who wouldn't go in an airplane. Wonderful people, good friends of mine. They just had some thing about airplanes. That didn't affect the rest of their lives. Now, if you pointed a gun at them and said, if you don't get on that plane, I'm going to kill you, they would break out in a sweat,
Yeah.
and say, please, please don't make me do it. But barring that sort of preposterous condition, these were some of my best friends. They were just afraid of airplanes. There's no personality disorder. So personality disorder is a general condition as opposed to these other little tiny things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew a woman once, nice person, and I found out she hated Mexicans. Boy, did she hate Mexicans.
Wow.
But if you didn't mention Mexicans, if there were no Mexicans, she was fine. Perfectly nice. We could have her to a party. She was congenial, good cook, nice person. Just don't mention Mexicans.
Oh man. Yeah.
But that's not a personality disorder.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about life spheres, this is a general condition. If somebody is at level 5, he cannot succeed with a team or any of the levels above, period.
Yeah.
He would have to expand his space. Now, I said that the change happens in a billionth of a second. So, the person has a certain amount of space. His space includes the interpersonal sphere. So he's fine about himself, he's fine about his family. Now you get this guy into some sort of facilitation or meditation, his space is getting bigger. His space is getting bigger. His space is getting bigger. You say, how's your meditation going? Great, I do it every day. I love it, right? Space is getting bigger. And at some point he says, you know, I can be a team member. I'm going to join a bowling team. And he
Yeah.
joins and he's happy to be a member. See, and he gets 6 months ago, he couldn't do that.
Hmm.
So what had been happening is that because of the therapy, his space was getting bigger.
Yeah.
This is something I experience every day in meditation. I literally feel my space getting bigger. So I'll look at something. Of course, this is all done with eyes closed,
Mhm.
in a quiet room, and I'll look at a certain thing, and my space will go, woof!
Yeah.
Ah, very nice. More space. So you see, so
Yeah.
that is what human development and human potential is all about, is making the person's space bigger. Because look, let's say you have a rapist. He's not including that woman in his space,
Mm-mm.
right? She's way over there. She's alien. That's why he can do that. See, I can't even get the idea of being mean to a woman unless she did something to me, like robbed me, then I would report it to the police. But I mean, that guy has something seriously wrong with him.
Yeah.
Okay. Now he's probably in level 6. He can only have himself.
Mhm.
That's why he has no girlfriend. He has no wife because he's at level 6. That's why he's a rapist. So you have to get this guy in some sort of therapy or some sort of spiritual activity where his space expands.
Yeah.
Well, I could actually run processes on my clients that would literally expand the person's space,
Hmm.
little by little, little by little. Can you get the idea of liking the guy who sits next to you on the bus? Oh, yeah, I can get the idea. Well, can you get that idea if he's a black person? No, I can't get that idea.
Hmm.
You see, that's his. So we have to work on that.
Yeah.
So let's say this is a very smart black person and he does a favor for you. You think you could like him? Oh, yeah, I think I could like him. You see? So his space is getting a little bit bigger. He's getting
Yeah.
the idea, oh, maybe I can get along with black people. See?
Hmm.
So if you get it big enough, then he says, yeah, black people are fine. Some of them are crooks and some of them are nice people. Some just like white people. Some of us are good and some of us are bad. There used to be a show called Amos and Andy
Yeah.
that was taken off by the NAACP, taken off the air.
Really?
And because they thought it stereotyped blacks. Now, when I watched that show as a little kid before they took it off, I got the idea blacks are just like us. They just look different.
Hmm.
That's what I got from it.
Yeah.
They make a living, they have a wife, they drive a car, they have friends. Some of them are crooks, some of them are nice people, some of them are gullible. They're just like white people. You see? And they took it off the air. That was a mistake. They shouldn't have done that. Because people could have looked at that, normal people like myself, and say, yeah, this is funny. It's a funny show. And it shows that black people, there are black dentists, there are black doctors, there are black people who are very educated, black people who are mean. They're just like us.
Mm-hmm.
So I had those people in my space. So to me, when I was a kid, all kinds of black people I liked: Fats Domino, Ray Charles, Sugar Ray Robinson, Elston Howard, Jim Brown, all these black people I loved. So
Yeah.
they were part of, my space included them. You see, I pay money to go see them, literally, or buy their records.
Yep.
They were included in my space. Now, people who are racists, those people are excluded.
Mm.
Those are sick people. They're
Yeah.
further down this scale. They
Yeah. Something.
can't include those people for whatever reason. And if you can get to the bottom of that and get rid of that, get into the subconscious then they'll include them. They'll say, you know what, Jim, you're right. They're just like us. Okay, so let me introduce you to my friend Joe. He's a black guy. Okay, let's all go to a baseball game together. Great, let's go. See? But what's happening spiritually is that the person's space is expanding, literally expanding. So when you talk about a big person, there are people who you can describe as a big person. Like, for example, Elon Musk. He's a big person.
Oh, yeah.
He includes a lot, right? He's pretty far up this scale. Listen to what he has to say. Comes right out of his mouth.
Yep.
Or Jackie Gleason was like that. He was a big person. Now, obviously, that's a joke because he was overweight most of the time.
Yeah.
But he was notoriously a soft touch.
Yeah.
You meet some guy on the street in New York he hadn't seen in 30 years and give him $50. Oh, Frank, how you been? You still living in Brooklyn? Oh, yeah, well, I lost my... Okay, here's some money. That's big. That's including people in your space. Somebody once asked Gleason how much of the success of the Honeymooners was due to Ed Norton. And he said, all of it. See, that's big. See, somebody who is egocentric would have said, well, hey, he was just a cast member and it was my show, You see?
Yeah.
So that's big.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what's big about these people is they have a lot of space. So their life spheres are big. So the person's space gets bigger and bigger, and suddenly he says, yeah, you know what? I don't have to just associate with Americans. I can associate with foreigners too. Changes his mind. He went to a higher level on the scale. Now, how did that happen? That we don't know. Something happened with him, whether he was doing some transformational processing or something, and his space was getting bigger. Like this woman I said was in a bad marriage and came to me. I worked with her, working on herself. She got bigger. She said, what am I, crazy?
Yeah.
Got rid of this guy. See? Then she started going out with guys who she liked, and they liked her, you see? Instead of being in a bad marriage. So this is very, very monumental information. This is a whole new way of looking at people and understanding them. This is what I understood when I was working with my clients as human development engineer. Why I was able to get them to improve. I'd work on the person at the level he was at, and his space would get bigger. I have actually had clients in the middle of a session say to me, I feel like I just took off an overcoat that was too small for me. He's saying his space got bigger.
Yeah.
And when the person's space gets bigger, then he moves up this scale. And don't be thrown off by downscale people who have something that looks like a higher level thing.
Yeah.
Like the guy who says, oh, I love all people. Well, aren't you a radical feminist? Yes, men are terrible. Well, wait a minute now. Let me get this straight. You just say you love all people.
Yeah.
You see? So if a person is a radical feminist who hates men, that person is pretty far down this scale.
Absolutely.
So any type of hatred is not good. Any type of hatred. I don't hate Hitler. I'm philo-Semitic. Many of my best friends are Jewish. I'm talking about my closest friends. I love these people, okay? And in general, I like Jewish people. And they're funny, they're smart, they're talented people. But if you say to me, do you hate Hitler? No, I don't hate Hitler. He was a psychopathic mass murderer. But I don't hate him. What good is that going to do if I hate him?
Yeah, exactly. It just, it's
That doesn't help. That doesn't bring back all the people he's killed.
Nope.
Now, do I think he should have been executed in 1923 for committing treason? Yes.
Yeah.
Germans should have executed him in 1923 because he
Yeah.
was convicted of treason. Would it change world history? But again, that doesn't mean I hate him.
And that energy of hate doesn't do you any good.
That's right. You know, it's like sometimes I get a mosquito in the house, right?
Yeah.
I swat it. I'm not going to get bit by that mosquito. He doesn't belong in my house.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I hate mosquitoes. If they're outside my house, I don't care what they do. You see? So that's what I mean about a sane way of looking at these things.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
you know, like I live in the country. If you leave the door open for more than a minute, you're going to get some creature coming in your house.
Oh, yeah.
Flies, lizards, snakes. I've had all those things get in my house. It's almost impossible because, believe me, I live in the country. There's no sidewalks, no street lights, okay? But I don't hate them. So I'll get a snake in my house, kill it, get rid of it. Doesn't mean I hate the snake, but I'm not going to have a snake in my house. You see? It doesn't mean I don't embrace other creatures.
Yeah.
So like, you know, if a dog attacks you and you shoot him, that's a reasonable act. Doesn't mean you hate dogs. It means you're saving yourself from a crazy dog.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions?
No. What we'll do instead of having 2 chapters instead of having the normal 3 chapters, we'll do the 2 chapters. Went a little over, but
Yeah.
it was well worth it
This
because
is complicated
life
stuff.
fears is definitely there's a lot of information in that one. So
And I belabored the point because this is a life-changing piece of information.
oh yeah. Yeah.
When you start looking at people this way, you can handle them better because you understand what's going on with them. And you can look at a person and say, oh, this guy has very little space.
Mhm.
You see? And then you have compassion for him. This guy, he is just not up to asking her. I had a buddy like that. Very smart guy, became a physicist.
Yeah.
Never went out with a girl. Couldn't do it.
Oh wow. Huh. So what we'll do in part 11, we'll cover chapter. And for those who haven't gotten the book yet, go get the book. That way you can um, actually follow through through the courses and stuff like that through the book. But what we'll do next during the next episode in part 11, we'll cover chapter 3 and chapter 4 of book 2.
Okay.
Group scales, which is a scale of government and the scale of civilization.
Yeah, a lot of data there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, Paul.
Jim, appreciate it, my friend. Stay safe out there, my friend.
It was a pleasure.
Definitely.
Thank you.
You are
Have a nice week.
You do the same, my friend. Thank you.
Take it easy.
Thank you, everybody, for watching Conscious Radio Network special series or special reports. We will see you next time.